Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast with Eric Thompson.
Inspire, perform, profit.
Hey there, what's happening, everybody? It's your good friend Eric. This is the Leading Edge Podcast, episode number 30. Can you believe it? We've made it now to 30 podcasts. And as you probably know, once we hit these round numbers, every 10th episode, I give you a book report. So I tell you about one of my favorite books on the 10th, 20th, and now 30th, and we're going to keep doing this as we go along. Today's book and today's book report that we're going to, in the book we're going to talk about is Good to Great. Good to Great. You may have read it. You've at least heard of it. It is one of my favorite books. It's arguably one of the best business books ever written. It's written by Jim Collins, and it's all about his research into the great companies up against good companies. So he first uncovered with his team several companies in many, many different sectors, many industries. He uncovered companies that clearly outperformed the competition, and then he and his team dug into the reasons why. Why is it that certain companies like Walgreens outperform certain companies like Rite Aid? Okay, and it's a fascinating book. It's a fascinating study full of rich research. You know, the research is there, the data is there, the guy did his homework. So there are a lot of great takeaways from this book. One of the best takeaways is the first line of the book. And so, you know, the book could be a flyer because the first line of the book is so good. This podcast could be 30 seconds long because the first line of the book is so good. The first line of the book is, good is the enemy of great. Good is the enemy of great. And doesn't that just speak for itself? Isn't that so true? Isn't it so often that we sacrifice great just to be good? Sometimes good is in the way of great. We settle for good at the expense of being great. Good is the enemy of great. So that can be a mantra that you just carry with yourself all the time. Am I settling for good at the expense of being great? Where's the opportunity to be great? Where have I mistaken good for great? You know, where are the places that could be way, way better? So again, he and his team uncovered the specific attributes that these great companies had versus the good companies. And what he came up with are 6 of them. So there are 6 clear attributes, 6 pillars, 6 differentiators. So in this podcast, I'm just going to take you through those 6 in a quick way. So just to give you some hard-hitting takeaways, things that are going to help you in your business and also in your life. Attribute number 1 is what he calls level 5 leadership. So no surprise, the great companies had great leaders. And he makes a point in the book, he didn't necessarily go looking for this. He didn't want this to be like an expected conclusion. They weren't necessarily, trying to prove their hypothesis up front that he was going to find great leaders and that these great companies had great leadership. But no surprise to anyone, that is a big thing that he found. And so it's the first thing he talks about in the book. Again, level 5 leadership. So level 5 leaders are way different than level 1 leaders. So level 1 leaders are simply just highly capable individuals. Level 5 leaders, what they do is they channel their ego needs away from themselves and into the larger goal of building a great company. All right? So he said that when it comes to leadership, building enduring greatness is done through this paradoxical blend of personal humility and professional will. So these level 5 leaders are really able to kind of check their ego and put the team first, put the company first. And so he says their ambition is first and foremost for the institution. Their ambition is first and foremost for the institution. He tells the story of the CEO of Gillette. You all know the company Gillette. They make razors. And back in the day, they were facing a hostile takeover. And the CEO, he could have just acquiesced to that takeover, and he himself would have profited enormously. His stock that he had personally in the company, it would have gone up 44% had he have kind of agreed to and acquiesced to this hostile takeover. But instead, he fought for his team, he fought for the company, and did not put his own needs first. And so he got the hostile takeover, kind of kept those people at bay, was able to keep the company. And today, you know what? I get to shave with a Mach 3 razor because of him. Level 5 leadership can be summed up in this way. Jim Collins puts it really well. So he says it's the difference between a window and a mirror. It's the difference between a window and a mirror. And you can kind of think about yourself when it comes to this and your own leadership. Are you a leader who looks out the window? You're looking out the window to look at placing blame on other people. You're looking out the window to place blame on the circumstance, on the environment. We're not being successful because of these things that I'm seeing out the window. Or are you a leader that looks in the mirror? Do you own it yourself? As you look at places where you could be better, as you look at ways that you could improve, things that aren't going well, are you willing to look in the mirror and look at yourself and see how you yourself could be better in order to get the organization to be better? So are you someone who looks out the window, or are you someone who looks at the mirror? So that's attribute number 1. Attribute number 2 is probably the most well known from the book. And this one is called First Who, Then What. First who, then what. So this is the old bus metaphor that you've heard about the key to a great company is to get the right people onto the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and then the people into the right seats on the bus. So you've probably heard of that. It's just a terrific metaphor. I love thinking about the bus. I really use it in my own company. And so a takeaway he says is that what you're going to find is that when you do this right and you're getting the right people on the bus, people are going to be joining your company because of who is on the bus, not necessarily because of where it's going, all right? People who are terrific people want to be around terrific people, okay? And the great thing about this kind of philosophy is when people are joining because of who else is on the bus, it allows you to make change a whole lot easier versus people joining specifically and only for the direction and where the bus is going. If you want to change direction, which we want to do as leaders, all the time, we're always tweaking the direction. It's harder to make that change because people say, hey, wait, time out. I got on this bus because we were going in this direction. But if people are getting on the bus because of who is on the bus, then you can make those changes way, way easier. So he says that the key to a great life is who you spend your time with. And I just love that. I just think about myself, and I'm so blessed with the people who are on my team, the people who I spend a whole lot of time with. I really, really enjoy them. So he says the key to a great life is who you spend your time with. So it's so much about who you're allowing on the bus and who you're excusing to get off the bus. It's those people that you're surrounded with. That is the difference in how you will experience every single day, and so how you experience all of your life, okay? One more thing about First Who, Then What. He says that letting the wrong people hang around is such a disservice. So it's a disservice to the great people. It's a disservice also to them because, they're just kind of languishing out there. They deep down know that they should not be a part of this team. So letting the wrong people hang around is such a disservice. So that was number 2, First Who, Then What. Number 3, pillar number 3, attribute number 3, he calls confronting the brutal facts. Confront the brutal facts. So he says that a big thing that came up in his research is that these companies were able to get breakthrough results when it came about through a series of really, really great decisions that were diligently executed, that were stacked on top of each other and infused with the facts. All right, so I'll say that one more time. He found that breakthrough results came from a series of good decisions that were diligently executed, that were stacked on top of each other, and that were infused with the facts. So he says that facts are better than dreams. Facts are better than dreams. So what you want to do is you always want to be basing your decisions on the facts. You always want to be examining and looking at, staring at the facts, even if they are hard to look at, even if they are brutal to look at. So you must confront the brutal facts and yet never lose faith that you will prevail in the end. So he says you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. He talks about Admiral Stockdale. Admiral Stockdale was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and he survived a POW camp. You know, all the brutal and horrific things that happened in that camp, he survived that. And so Jim Collins went to go interview Admiral Stockdale and learn about what life was like in those camps and just find out the takeaways from the time in that camp. And so one of the questions that Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great, asked Admiral Stockdale, he said, so tell me, Admiral Stockdale, who are the people that didn't make it? You know, who are the people that didn't make it out? You made it out. You were strong-willed. You were convicted. You have just a strong reserve, right? You have lots of like emotional resources inside of you that helped you make it through. Who are the people that didn't make it out? And he said the people that didn't make it out were the optimists. And isn't that kind of almost disheartening to hear? Isn't that kind of shocking to hear? He said the optimists didn't make it out. And this is what he meant by that. So the optimists would say, you know what? I just know we're gonna get out by Christmas. That's just my dream. We're going to make it out of here so that we can be home with our families by Christmas. And you know what? Christmas would come and go. And then they would get their hopes up for Easter. And then they would get their hopes up for Thanksgiving. And Admiral Stockdale said that these people, what they died of, it wasn't the torture that they were going through in the camp. What they died of was a broken heart. And so it's Admiral Stockdale that came up with this phrase, and I'll say it one more time. He says that you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. So the takeaway is we must always keep faith and we must always confront the brutal facts of our current reality. All right, so that's number 3. Number 4, what you noticed about these highly performing great companies is the hedgehog concept. Okay, so Jim Collins came up with this thing he calls the hedgehog concept. And he asked the question, are you a hedgehog or are you a fox? Are you a hedgehog or a fox? Here's the deal. So foxes pursue many ends at the same time and see the world for its complexity. So foxes are scattered. They're jumping from one thing to the next. And they also are easily overwhelmed by the world's complexity because they're focused on so many different things. It's easy for them to become overwhelmed and have too much on their plate and again, just be jumping from one thing to the next. So foxes are scattered, hedgehogs are focused. So he says that hedgehogs, what they can do is they can simplify the world into one idea, one concept, one unifying vision. Hedgehogs see what is essential and they ignore the rest. They see what is essential, they ignore the rest. The way that he teaches this concept is he puts it into this visual, he puts it into this image of 3 overlapping circles. So you can imagine a Venn diagram, right, with 3 circles that overlapped. And it's that place of intersection that is the hedgehog concept, right? That's the focus. So here are the 3 circles. Number 1, it's what can you be the best in the world at, all right? What is it that you yourself or your company, what is it that you can be the best in the world at? We all have a thing, right? We all have a thing that is our God-given talent. We all have that thing that it's just really unique inside of us in terms of how we are wired up, how we see the world. It's based on our upbringing and our influences and even things that we were born with, right? It's that God-given talent. It's that one thing that we can be the best in the world at. What is it that you yourself can be the best in the world at? That's one circle. Next circle is what drives your economic engine. All right, what is it that drives your economic engine? So there may be something that we're super passionate about, but it's not going to drive our economic engine. So what is it that has the highest margin? What is it that has the best return? What is it that has the highest odds of producing a financial return? Because it's that financial return that creates sustainability, right? That creates growth, that creates opportunity. So we not only must have the thing that we're really good at, we must also have something that drives an economic engine. That's the second circle. The third circle is fun. It's what is it that you are extraordinarily passionate about? What is it that you are just have a fire about, that you are just driving towards, something that you're motivated by all the time, some cause, some particular segment of the market that you want to serve, some reason why you are fueled to do what you do. So it's the intersection of those three circles that really create the hedgehog concept. So imagine you yourself or a company, you are clear about what you can be the best in the world at, and you put all or most of your energy into that. And also it's something that drives your economic engine. It's something that has a big return, it has high margin, it has high opportunity, and it is something that you are extremely passionate about. Imagine those three forces coming together. Oh my goodness, what happens? Well, what happens is you turn into a great company when you can get all your energy into that, as opposed to being a fox and being scattered and jumping from one thing to the next. That's number 4. Number 5 pillar here, number 5 attribute, what Jim Collins found was a culture of discipline. Again, number 5 is a culture of discipline. He says that most companies, not the great companies, but most companies, they build bureaucratic rules around the wrong people on the bus, which ends up driving the wrong people away. So he makes the argument that so often a company becomes bureaucratic and really corporate-y and they have a ton of red tape because they have too many of the wrong people on the bus, and they have to create all these rules to help manage those people. But what ends up happening is that the best people get really turned off by that, and they get pushed away, and they want to leave those kind of environments that are full of bureaucratic rules. So he says that instead of bureaucracy, just build a culture of discipline. And what that is, it's the right people doing the right things. So when you get people focused and doing what they need to do and clarifying to them what it is that they need to do, then you have a culture of discipline. So culture of discipline isn't necessarily like this onerous thing. It's not like this micromanagement thing. It's simply the right people doing the right things. Get the right people into the right seats on the bus, get them focused on doing the right things. Then you have a culture of discipline. This is the chapter where he talks about, and this is another thing that's kind of famous in the book, or that the book is known for. It's the stop doing list. So the stop doing list comes out of this chapter about the culture of discipline. So we all have our stop doing list, or at least we all could have a stop doing list. What are the things that we're doing that we need to stop doing? All right. What are the things that are a waste of our time, that are not driving our economic engine, that we're not the best in the world at, where we're spinning our wheels, that could easily be delegated? It's not the highest and best use of us. It's an investment into the wrong thing. It's an investment into the wrong person. It's an investment into the wrong direction. You know, what it is, our stop doing list. So that could be a takeaway for you from this podcast. Go make your stop doing list. So that, again, that's number 5. And then number 6, real quick, he talked about technology accelerators. These great companies, that what they had was technology accelerators. And a big takeaway from this chapter is that technology, it's an accelerator. It's not a creator of momentum. So it will not, get you off the ground. It will not be the thing that kickstarts you going forward. It will only make you go faster. And I thought that was so important in this day and age, where, especially in our real estate industry, there's so much focus on technology. We're just overwhelmed with all these stories about technology and tech companies and on and on and on. But he says that technology, it's an accelerator, not a creator of momentum. He says that great companies never began their transition and their breakthrough into a great company because of technology. It only accelerated their growth. So the research proved that technology itself was never the reason for greatness or decline. Technology itself was never the reason for greatness or decline. So the takeaway here, I think, is don't get so wrapped up in technology. Don't view technology as the solution, as the thing that's going to turn you into a great company. It's only going to accelerate that. So it's all these other things, and then you infuse technology, and now we're talking that's really going to get you to a higher place. So again, the 6 things he found inside of the great companies versus the good companies. Number 1 was level 5 leadership. Are you a leader that looks out the window? Or are you a leader that looks into the mirror. Number 2 was first who, then what. The bus metaphor, getting the right people onto the bus, the wrong people off, the people into the right seats. Number 3 was confronting brutal facts. Don't be afraid to confront the brutal facts of your reality, and yet also never lose faith that you will prevail in the end. Number 4 is the hedgehog concept. This is where those 3 circles overlap. It's the best in the world. It is what drives your economic engine and what you're passionate about. Those are the 3 circles. Number 5 is the culture of discipline. It is getting the right people to do the right things. It's the opportunity to create your own stop doing list. Then number 6, again, is the technology accelerators. Remember that good is the enemy of great. All right, good is the enemy of great. To be great, we must be willing to not settle for good. To be great, we must be willing to not settle for good. All right, guys, that was podcast number 30. As always, I appreciate your engagement. I love that you tune into this. I love watching how our downloads are like skyrocketing. We've hit some really significant milestones. People are listening from literally all around the world. This is really, really cool. So I appreciate all of you. If you want more things like this, go check out jointheleadingedge.com. In the meantime, enjoy life on the leading edge. I will catch you in the next podcast.